Hello, I'm Colin Bigelow. I apologize for my voice, such as it is. There's fear in the air, and it's everywhere. We may paper it over with all manner of things, but the fear remains. All of us, all citizens of humanity, feel a great uncertainty. We all know in our guts that if things start going badly, things could get very bad very fast. If the world starts to tear apart, it could tear apart in ways we can't even imagine, with consequences for generations. We know this. We feel this. Our children feel this. But what to do in the face of such uncertainty and fear? I would like to suggest that we form a new identity within us and between us. As I said, we are all citizens of humanity. But so what? What does it matter? Why do those words matter? Those words matter because that new identity matters if we are going to reduce the chance of ripping ourselves to shreds. And the identity must be global, existing in and between all nations and citizens, or it serves no purpose. This identity is above all else moral. It is a moral identity, and also necessarily a spiritual one. It means above all else that you may not knowingly take actions to harm your fellow citizens anywhere in any nation, with the exception of self-defense. This is a deadly, serious identity, and ultimately it is revolutionary, because it is a moral and spiritual identity that by definition supersedes national identity and must. The spiritual dimension of this identity is foundational. It's irrelevant if you are atheist or agnostic. We all choose an ultimate concern in our lives, even if it's basic human decency. That said, I would recommend choosing a higher power of your understanding, to borrow a term from Alcoholics Anonymous. The only requirement is that this higher power be benevolent to all humankind and advises you to act as such. What I'm asking, to identify and act as citizens of humanity, might be relatively easy within some nations. And it could get you imprisoned, tortured, and killed in others, which has already been happening for a long time. Thus, I recommend that you choose a higher power of your understanding and develop a relationship with it. Talk to it a lot. Ask it throughout the day what it believes your next right action should be, and do that. And you will need that relationship with your higher power if acting out your global conscience gets you in trouble with the kind of people who never want you to act as a free citizen of all humanity. War is coming. I would love to be wrong, but I don't think I am. And who you choose to be in the face of unspeakable aggression means everything. Israelis and Ukrainians already know this in their souls. And the Taiwanese know what's coming. And Europe is most certainly uneasy. If you serve in the armed forces and are called upon to do your duty, then do it. Unless your conscience or your higher power says no. That is what I am asking of you when it comes to identifying and acting as a citizen of humanity. Your morals, your ethics, your allegiances, and your higher power all come together to serve a new, greater identity. Jordan Peterson said something to the effect that the very greatest act of faith is doing or saying what you believe to be the deepest or truest good, absolutely and entirely without concern for the outcome. You do what you know in your soul is right because it is right. End of story. And that ultimately this leads to the most meaningful life possible. Although you may also suffer unimaginably along the way. Peace and prosperity and goodwill are possible, but are in no way guaranteed. Ultimate meaning is just that. Ultimate. It promises the peace and integrity of your soul. It says nothing to guarantee the safety or comfort of your mortal self. This is why I cannot ask you to adopt a new identity as a citizen of humanity without simultaneously and with great sincerity developing a personal, direct relationship with a higher power of your understanding, even if it's simply the most moral, humanistic mind you can imagine. Because, as I said, this is deadly serious business. And with a direct personal connection to your higher power, you will never be alone, even in the darkest of places. Understand that most of what I'm speaking about here is war. I am no pacifist. I experienced unspeakable violence early in life. I have no compunction about destroying avowed enemies who have no desire for anything but atrocity and violence and who refuse peace. I believe we are experiencing the calm before the storm. On the surface, things don't look quite so bad. Maybe life is even pretty good for some. Or maybe you felt yourself slowly losing your mind and your composure over the past decade. Many have surely felt this way. But when a storm is coming, you feel it. You feel the drop in pressure. You know in your bones that darkness is on the horizon even when you cannot see it yet. That is what I'm experiencing right now. I think that's what a lot of us are experiencing right now. But most of us have no earthly idea how to prepare for whatever storm is coming, because the only thing we know for sure is that it will be unlike anything humankind has ever experienced before. So basically, we just keep living our lives. What else are we to do? Let me take a moment now to provide some context for who I am. I've worked with the Einstein of consciousness integral philosopher Ken Wilber since I was 19. I am now 42. When I was 23 years old, he published Integral Spirituality, dedicated it to me, and said, "From Manjushri to Vajrapani, some might say." And what that literally means within Tibetan Buddhism is from the Bodhisattva of wisdom, Ken, to the Bodhisattva of power, me. Then in last year's book, Finding Radical Wholeness, he dedicated it to me as well. To Colin, it appears that Vajrapani lives. What I am doing here now is acting on my own higher power's command. And I do mean command. Even though I have deep roots in Buddhism, I have come to love Judaism, and I am in the process of converting, assuming I don't say anything too heretical in videos like this. What I'm doing here now is acting out an Abrahamic form of faith to the best of my ability. And forgive me for communicating these Judaic ideas imperfectly. I'm still learning. Lech Lecha is the divine call that begins Abraham's story. Lech, go. Walk. Lecha, for yourself, to yourself, toward yourself. God does not simply say go. He says go in order to become who you are meant to be. God does not name the destination. He does not provide a map. Abraham must walk without certainty, without proof, without knowing whether the promises of God will hold. God has made no promises to me. I have only been commanded to be of the greatest service to all humanity that I can be, and that I must walk blindly, not knowing my destination in any way whatsoever. For me, my Abrahamic walking is in fact talking. I do not know what I will be required to say tomorrow. I only know what I am required to say today. And I am required to demonstrate Amunah to the best of my ability. In a sentence, Amunah is the courage to remain faithful, responsible, and oriented toward the good, even when the ground is not solid beneath your feet. Emunah is not so much about what faith normally means in much of the world, where faith means holding the correct beliefs about God. It is living in a way that shows trust in God and reliability to God. It is shown by action, loyalty, and perseverance. When God told Abraham to walk, he walked and kept walking, even amidst fear, doubt, failure, and uncertainty. So I'm going for a little walk myself. And it's very hard to describe to people who haven't had a similar experience of this kind of living faith with a living God. Because I will say whatever I am commanded to say. And I will go wherever I am commanded to go. And I will do whatever I am commanded to do, regardless of any outcome. And there's actually tremendous peace in knowing that if you are called to serve in this way, that you will serve with peace and honor and perseverance and joy and gratitude and faith, to whatever end. That was a rather long aside, but it was an important one. Back to my earlier thought. This feels like the calm before the storm. And most of us feel deeply uneasy. And we have no idea what to do except just keep living our lives until something happens that destroys our sense of normalcy. So I'm saying prepare. Prepare for that normal to be shattered if it doesn't feel that way already. And I say prepare by developing an identity as citizens of humanity such that we have established a moral and spiritual center individually and collectively, so that we can respond to anything with the very best of our common humanity among all citizens of all nations. We identify and act as citizens of humanity as a matter of public global service, to serve the global common good, and above all, to preserve peace except when an aggressor makes that impossible. And then, if you are to serve in combat, serve with honor, bravery, and resolve, with love for your countrymen and women, and with love and faith in a higher power of your understanding. To identify as and act as a citizen of humanity is in a very real sense to embody and uphold the ethos and responsibilities of a professional military or first responder organization of the highest ethical order. You exist to serve and protect others, particularly if they cannot protect themselves. You exist to protect and serve all citizens of humanity, no matter where they live. And without being rash or foolish, if you must put yourself in harm's way to render that service, you are morally and spiritually obligated to do so. That is your duty. That is your ethos. That is my duty. That is my ethos. Because if we do not all pull together, we will most surely pull apart. We choose to serve all for the benefit of all, or we choose to serve only a few at the peril of all. Understand where we are in the world right now. We are re-entrenching on all sides. We are deciding who we hate, both within our nations and between our nations. We are deciding who we consider an enemy, both within our nations and between our nations, with major military spending increases on all sides. And with AI and robotics already causing huge swaths of the global population to not know if their job will exist in 5 years, if they will have any idea at all how they will feed their family in 5 years, all of this is a tinderbox, which all of us can feel, but nearly no one wants to admit because nearly no one knows what to do about it. And I say we must have a moral and spiritual reorientation to what it means to be human. We exist to serve all to the best of our ability. We are active forces of peace, communication, harmony, and cooperation among all citizens of humanity across every national, ethnic, or religious boundary. In every instance that we can, we act to diffuse tension, animosity, hostility, and hatred. In every instance that we can, we act to build mutual understanding, trust, cooperation, and genuine love among all peoples. We do everything we can to make the populations within nations unwilling to go to war, regardless of a government's desire to do so. We do everything in our power to make war unpopular, unreasonable, undesirable, and impossible to wage. These are our first and most necessary duties. If you individually are a true pacifist as a citizen of humanity, then do your duty as a true pacifist, and I commend you. But citizens of humanity as a whole cannot be pacifists. We humans have an extraordinary capacity for bloodlust, brutality, and inhumanity. And we have an extraordinary capacity to forget that we are capable of this. We are capable of all the darkness we believe only exists in history books, books that most of us ignore in any event. Most Vietnam War veterans are 70 to 80. Most Korean War veterans are 85 to 90. Most World War II veterans, if they're still alive, are in their late 90s to well over 100. And as they age and die out, we stop listening, and we choose to forget what we are capable of, both in terms of our capacity for extraordinary gallantry and our capacity for appalling violence. We are not better than those who came before us, and we may be capable of worse. We certainly have the tools at our disposal to do worse. So fundamentally, citizens of humanity must always consider themselves citizen soldiers or citizen servants. Whether you serve actively in your military is not the primary point. Whether you bear arms and serve in combat in an informal capacity is not the primary point. It is the mindset and values of the citizen soldier, the citizen servant that matters, and wherever possible, training. It is the conviction and discipline to serve your community and your nation in a time of distress or war in whatever capacity you are most suited to or is most needed, and to do so with true esprit de corps among whatever functional group you are a part of. I realize that I'm asking for a very great deal. I understand that there are inherent contradictions in what I say to do, which, again, is why I cannot possibly stress enough developing a personal relationship with a higher power of your understanding. Because if your identity and convictions as a citizen of humanity come into direct conflict with what you may be ordered to do by your government in a time of war, that higher power will be your lifeline amidst chaos, confusion, and conflicting duties and values. Join a faith community. Join two. There are dozens of 12-step fellowships. Join one of them. But learn to talk to a higher power of your understanding every day. Learn how to pray for guidance, for strength, for wisdom, for peace, for the ability to give and receive love. And just as important as learning how to talk to your higher power is learning how to be quiet enough to listen, to hear what it has to say. In my experience, most of the time, the voice of my higher power is quiet, steady, and calm. So learn to become quiet enough to listen for that voice, for it is there. With practice, your higher power will always answer you. Maybe not as quickly as you'd like, maybe not with the answer you want, but you will never be left alone. Learn how to pray. Learn how to meditate. Learn how to dialogue and argue with God, and you will realize that you'll never be alone again, and never were to begin with. With peace in my heart and with clarity of mind, I tell you that war is coming, so prepare. Taking concrete action in the present is what stops panic, so don't panic. Prepare. Take concrete actions every day to strengthen yourself morally, spiritually, physically, maybe learn a new skill. And wherever possible, do this with others. We need each other deeply. And again, with peace in my heart and with clarity of mind, I tell you that war is coming. Not because widespread conflict is inevitable, but that if we are to be responsible, moral agents of a global human community, we must be clear-eyed about the real dangers we all face, the reality of how quickly things could spin out of control, and therefore our shared responsibility as citizens of humanity to adopt the ethos of citizen soldiers, of citizen servants, such that we are prepared to respond with clarity and confidence to whatever challenge we face for the benefit of all humankind. It must be said that fundamentally I am not saying anything new. I am saying it with clarity, with confidence, and with personal responsibility for the words coming out of my mouth. But in many ways, the essence of what I'm saying is ancient. So let us end with an ancient teaching of Torah from Deuteronomy. I have set before you life and death, blessing and curse. Choose life that you and your descendants may live. Choose life. With clarity of mind, surety of heart, and the conviction that as one human family, we can face and overcome any challenge, so that all our descendants may live. Thank you for your attention. I love you. Talk soon.